massive number. It's like 1 in like mega trillions. Like there was the chance that this could just be by random accident, like just a fluke. Another way to say that is vaccines cause chronic illness. This is proof.
Your organization has achieved a significant dent in vaccine mandates.
We didn't do the science. We didn't do the clinical trials. We didn't do the post-safety. But for one thing we know it's rare.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Shot Callers. I am Carrie Bigford, Outreach Director with Texans for Vaccine Choice. And today we have a wonderful guest. Greg Glaser is a health freedom lawyer in California. He served as lead litigator for the control group of over 1,000 unvaccinated families and helps families daily with vaccine exemptions. Greg is also the general counsel for Physicians for Informed Consent, which delivers data on infectious diseases and vaccines. Greg is passionate about organic living and the Constitution. Same, Greg, same. Thank you so much for joining today. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I really appreciate the good work that Texas for Vaccine Choice is doing, especially in the realm of legislative advocacy.
Yeah, legislative and community outreach, they go hand in hand because all of our community efforts feed our legislative efforts and all roads lead to the laws.
Yeah. You know, I've been on a call with you where you were the presenter, Carrie. So now we've switched roles a little bit, but you were educating our group as to how to be, the best advocates that we could be, no matter who we're speaking with, and finding common ground with people. So I hope that I'm able to, to reach your audience today. And I'm really grateful for the opportunity.
I have no doubt that you'll be able to, and I'm very excited to get to have you here. Would you mind telling us more about what the control group was and kind of what that means, that 1,000 unvaccinated families?
Sure. Before COVID started, we already basically knew that there was a COVID coming because I was listening to Anthony Fauci when he was saying there's going to be a pandemic. And so I notified people in the health freedom movement, hey guys, Fauci's planning something. And so when COVID came, we were already ready. We already had a case ready to go. We studied the health of over 1,000 unvaccinated people. These were adults as well as children. And the health of the unvaccinated is absolutely extraordinary. The results that we got from our study, if I can, I'm happy to share my screen so you can see some of these amazing results.
Yeah, I would love to see the data that you collected because you're not the first person to talk about the unvaccinated having better health outcomes. Oh,
yeah, right. Well, so we have these really great graphs that we prepared for the litigation. And in the orange, you could see this is our national data of children with chronic illness. And then on the right-hand side, you can see this is the unvaccinated control group that we surveyed. And we calculated the exact risk of vaccination. The yellow group is, they're unvaccinated, but they got a K shot at birth or their mother was vaccinated during pregnancy. The little blue group, that's the pure unvaccinated, meaning people who've never received a vaccine, mother was never vaccinated during pregnancy, never got a K shot. So they're the healthiest, over 10 times healthier. And the same applies for adults, most adults have one or more chronic illnesses. Some adults have 5 chronic illnesses. That means you're basically dying. But we never found that in the unvaccinated, precisely 0. We calculate the exact risk of this being chance. As you can see, look at this number over here. I don't know if I can zoom in on this for you, Carrie. But look at that massive number. It's like 1 in like mega trillions. Like there was the chance that this could just be by random accident, like just a fluke. Another way to say that is vaccines cause chronic illness. This is proof. And so we introduced this evidence in court, including that we didn't find any heart disease among the unvaccinated. We didn't find any diabetes. The likelihood of this happening by chance, you'd have to flip a coin. Imagine flipping a coin about 50 times and it came up heads every time. You'd know that either the coin is rigged, or there's like some divine intervention. But it's the same like this. Like there's no way this could be a fluke. Like this proves vaccines cause diabetes. And our statistical sample was large enough that even larger than many studies that the CDC relies on to set national policy. So we had an above 99% confidence in our statistical data. And we got this vetted by PhDs, expert statistician, physicians, all submitted expert testimony in this case. And so that is the control group and how I, have been representing the unvaccinated for so long. And I really enjoy what I do. And the unvaccinated control group, the case, it went all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. And in that process, we had to recuse several judges, meaning the judges withdrew because they owned pharma stock. So technically the case is like in limbo. We're not really sure where it goes from here, but all of this evidence was prepared for litigation. And the information that I shared with you on the screen, that is also in a published peer-reviewed journal. So after the litigation, or during the pendency of the litigation, we also got it published in a journal. So, and this information is available.
Which journal?
It is one of the vaccine journals. The name of it escapes me at this time, but I could, if you like, I could pull it up and then share it on the screen. It is.
Yeah, it's just good to know so that people can look it up for themselves, because it's really explosive data and it goes against pretty much everything we've been told our entire lives about how vaccines save lives, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And looking at this, it's amazing that we're still in a world where we're facing mandates, where we're facing compulsory vaccination requirements for, in California, where you are, school entry, or in many places for employment and for healthcare workers in general. They're still facing compulsory vaccination.
So,
but looking at that data, which
this is the study right here, published in 2022 during the pendency of the litigation, and this is where, if you open up this study, you'll see the great graphs that we have, or at least two of the graphs made it into the study, and a really good resource if people are curious about what happened with the case and all this. We have a website as well, which is just a compendium of information, because remember, before we started this case before COVID, so we collected approximately 5,000 pages of mainstream resources for the president of the United States and for others, and then created this record. And so while COVID was happening, we were right on the front lines educating everyone. Hey, here's the risk of vaccination, and you guys need to know the unvaccinated are the healthiest people on the planet.
Right.
And one of the ways that it made sense to me that the unvaccinated are so healthy was, what we did is we compared the health of people before the mass vaccination campaign, like in the 1950s, and then we compared the unvaccinated today. They look the exact same. It's like the unvaccinated took a time machine back to the 1950s where virtually everyone was healthy. And the way I like to describe that for folks, Carrie, is imagine that you live on a street and there are 100 people on your street. And on the next street, there's also another 100 people. So 200 people total. One street's unvaccinated street and the other street is vaccinated street. Well, on vaccinated street, half of the people on that street have a chronic illness. 10 of them are dying from multiple chronic illnesses. Vaccinated street is an absolute mess. It's a nightmare. Vaccinated street is the country that we live in. Whereas on unvaccinated street, more than 95 of them are perfectly healthy for life. That's amazing. And that means that, which is what it was like in the 1950s. If you go back to 1950s, unvaccinated street was the norm. That was normal America. So that's how it made sense to me when we looked at this data, because it's so startling. And one of the ways that we knew that the data was accurate when it was coming in was we compared the results that we got from families in New York to the families in California to the families in other states, and the data matched. at each interval. So that was an internal indicia of reliability. So not only were we 99% confident in the data for starters, that added an additional indicia of reliability. So the statistician was particularly impressed when he submitted his court document, recognizing the validity of the study. Yeah. And I'm also the general counsel for Physicians for Informed Consent. And we have this book, which is really helpful for people to know about vaccines and the diseases that they target. In this book, we cover each vaccine, the exact risk of the disease compared to the vaccine that it targets. And our book has been recognized and cited by the data has been cited by the Secretary of Health and Human Services. I'm sure you know who that is.
Yep. RFK Jr.
Yes, that's right. And it's also been cited at ACIP. And so, which is where a lot of the debate in the mainstream is going. So as you can see, I'm, working in these worlds of, mainstream medicine and science, and also more of like the independent, like, let's look at what the unvaccinated show. And I think it's in, so I try to bridge that, I don't want to call it a gap, but like, it's like a continuum. And that's also a space that you work in, in communicating with people and bringing people along.
Everyone
you want
is
to share about that?
Somewhere on the spectrum of understanding.
Yes. Yeah. And have you used the book?
And that Physicians for Informed, yes, that silver book, I love it. It's quickly become my favorite outreach book because it's so concise. The formatting is excellent. It gives you what you need without stuff that you don't necessarily find interesting. Like, it's not too science heavy, but it's very to the point. It's a great, like, boots on the ground resource for individuals to use to decide what their individual choices should be. We actually include it in our New Parent Informed Consent gift bundle that you can purchase for a loved one who's expecting, and send them this gift bundle in the mail, even anonymously, if you want to send it anonymously. And you can include that silver book because it really is such a great resource. And like the formatting, you guys must have spent so much time distilling down all that data into a front and back page for each vaccine and a front and back page for each illness. Like, it's so wonderfully formatted.
Yeah, I think
so much data.
Yeah, it's really it's really neat that it's so accessible.
Yes,
so
I agree.
we sort of tried to have all of the best. We try to do the best of both worlds, which is be physicians and get this information from a physician's perspective. Very analytical, data-driven, mainstream sources, always vetted mainstream sources entirely. So this is a great book to share with people on Facebook. You are not going to get banned for sharing this book.
No.
And there's more to come. Our plan is to add additional vaccines such as HPV. I think that's really important. What this book covers is all of the vaccines that got mandated in California. Our organization, Physicians for Informed Consent, we're based in California. You guys are based in Texas, and we've had the same and similar experiences, communicating with legislators. Well, what's been your experience with that?
Well, I mean, I started in California many, many years ago. In like 1999 is when I began my advocacy journey, a very long time ago in California. And so I have the contrast of doing legislative advocacy in both places. And you meet resistance everywhere. Even here in Texas, you meet resistance, and your outreach skills are tested because you have to communicate in a way that they understand, one, that it matters to them, and two, that they have a responsibility to take action to protect, other Texans and their decisions. But it's definitely challenging to build the bridges when they don't understand, which again, is another reason why the silver book is my favorite, because it's just so concise. Like, it wasn't around last legislative session. So we had to through our materials, create something similar, but you have to have something that's very accessible and very easy to skim through, because you don't have a lot of time with the legislators to get them to be interested in what you're sharing. They have a very short attention span in general. And the topic of vaccine lack of efficacy can be really, really touchy to bring up because it's threatening like a sacred cow ideology that vaccines are safe and effective and that they, saved billions of lives. And when you look at data like you presented in the lawsuit, like when you look through the Physicians for Informed Consent book and you recognize that one, the harm of these diseases has been inflated and the benefit of the vaccines has been very inflated, it really causes a lot of people internal discomfort, and legislators are definitely not exempt from that.
Yes. At one of the meetings where you were presenting to our group of health freedom activists, you shared one point in particular that always stuck with me. And I've begun to put it in practice, which is you said that in meetings, and I'm going to paraphrase you, you said in meetings, sometimes you'll bring out your phone and you'll show them the Google result so that they know that what you're sharing with them is accurate information that is mainstream. And because that's their mindset.
Yes.
And you mentioned you want to begin there. You want to speak to their mindset, where they are, and reach common ground.
Yes.
It's sort of like getting someone to say yes multiple times before maybe you reach a point where there's going to be some movement on their position.
Yes. Yeah. When you're sharing information, it's so important that it is specific, not nuanced, evidence-based, verifiable, objective reality. Like your opinion, choices, fringe ideas, that is not the place to begin in outreach conversation. You want to begin with things that people can openly resist and doubt and go through their own process of discovery about it.
Yeah.
And it's usually they're trying to prove me wrong, but then they end up proving me right.
Yeah, and the only exception, of course, is if you're at the family dinner table, in which case start with chemtrails. And just kidding.
I would definitely say qualify your audience.
Yeah. I think that the future is clearly going in the direction of holistic health, natural healing, and so the writing's already on the wall for vaccines, but we're going through this process of the authorities, the so-called authorities, shifting their position, and I think that a lot of it comes from the culture, and this is one thing that we've learned and have said a lot of time, and which is why so many people want to invest in education, because it's education that changes the culture, and that's been our organization pick. We focused on education because we know how important it is, and that's the thing is that education and advocacy go hand in hand, because you educate, you advocate. And then that's where you see the change. And sometimes it takes a long time. And so I especially respect those who are able to bring others together and unite organizations and keep organizations strong, like Texans for Vaccine Choice. You guys are strong and making change. So good for you.
Yes. Thank you for that praise. We fight really hard for Texas, but you're right. You have to have both components. You can have all the laws you want in the world, but if the average person doesn't understand why those laws matter to them, you're not going to keep them. And if you get enough people in the culture, in the community, to understand where things need to shift and what needs to shift, then that shift at the electoral level, at the legislative level, becomes inevitable. Because ultimately what the legislative body cares about is their next election and maintaining their position. And for those reasons, responding to constituencies. And so you can kind of approach it as a both and approach. This is what we do here. We fight just as hard in communities all over Texas. I mean, we have over 100 volunteers that are doing different things, planned outreach activities every single month all over the state. And so we're hitting that culture, that community aspect really hard as a preparatory base for the next legislative session, where we can use that leverage we've garnered through our community outreach to, get bills passed and get bills killed.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You got to do both.
And how do you keep a pulse on what's happening outside of the health freedom movement? Do you check in with mainstream news like Apple News and so forth? Because for me, I've struggled with that. I can't even read the mainstream news. I find it so offensive. Meaning like, it's false. It doesn't resonate with me. And so I have to connect with people who do read the mainstream news. Like my wife, for example, educates me on what's happening in the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I have a few people that are still in the mainstream news that let me know, but my favorite way to kind of take the pulse is to go to farmers markets or random neutral human gathering events and start talking to people. I love outreach. I love getting to discover what people's position is, why that position makes sense to them, and what they need to shift that position. And so I'll go to lots of different types of groups where lots of different type of people exist and just strike up a conversation and just kind of discern where the average person is along this spectrum of understanding in terms of, medical liberty topics in general, vaccines specifically, what's happening at the federal government, because that's new and exciting. And most people haven't caught up to the shift. There's a lot of angsty feelings about the pace of shifting, even though people like you and I are like, it's not going fast enough. The average person is still in that paradigm of some level of safe and effective. And so to get them to this place of recognizing the pitfalls of these products can be challenging.
Yeah.
And a process.
And you're raising a point that goes right to the core of advocacy and education for that matter. And it's how fast should we go and how can we manage our expectations about the speed. I was lamenting about this one time. We're not going fast enough on Truth Social, and a fellow Christian shared with me a Bible verse, and it really helped center me and give me patience. And I don't know the Bible verse off the top of my head. I just know it's from the Old Testament, and it says, I'm paraphrasing, it says that the reason that the Lord doesn't execute all justice all at once is because he doesn't want the land to be laid waste. And you can sort of see that, these government agencies, they actually do a lot of helpful things, actually are a lot of helpful people in government. And,
absolutely.
Right. And so, they also want to fix things, and you talk with them candidly, they also want to see change. But so, it's a process of moving slowly, and who knows what the Lord has in store for us in terms of what institutions are going to survive, which ones will collapse. I know we all have our favorites for which ones will survive and collapse. I won't name names, but
well, and it's also when you're talking to individuals, maintaining a compassionate curiosity about where their position is and where that position came from and what it means to them, kind of, maintaining compassion for it and not allowing yourself to go into judgment and defensiveness, to just allowing yourself to discover that person and to just maintain that this person feels this way because this is what their world has led them to. And you want to help them shift in a way that doesn't blow up their life and can keep them connected to you as they're shifting so that you can be that steady point of focus as everything else begins to swirl and become, new as it resettles. You're still there in your centered base, Yeah. I don't know if that made sense, but that's...
I think it does. And it comes from a mindset of openness to possibilities that somehow the Lord is using whatever's happening right now for good.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I get surprised, how the Lord will use something like even COVID, for example. I bring this up with people.
Yeah.
Because our President Trump, he promoted the COVID vaccine. But the thing to understand about President Trump is that his job isn't always to fix things. Sometimes his job is just to put a giant spotlight on things, and then the public fixes it. And I think that's what happened with the COVID shot, that Trump was the giant spotlight on the COVID shot, and it ultimately ended up completely decimating the shot. I mean, because now nobody wants it. Nobody. At least I hope, I think. So, that's an example where when we have more information, later on in time, we can then look back and say, oh yeah, that actually was helping us. The Lord actually was bringing us along. Now, working in the health freedom movement, you know firsthand, Carrie.
Even the pandemic at large was like a huge example of that, because everything that was happening during the pandemic had already been happening behind the scenes. Like all the vaccine science weirdness and all of the compulsory, coercion, all of those things were happening behind the scenes, but people weren't aware of it. And COVID and the policies of COVID highlighted exactly why we don't want to give up our body autonomy, exactly why we want better science for our vaccines. We want real safety science that's, longitudinal and inert placebo based. We want highly powered. We want all the things that we have in other spaces for this. And it also highlighted the danger in just following along when it comes to your body and its medical interventions.
Yeah. Bodily autonomy, which is a legal right that you have under the Fifth Amendment.
Yes.
You have the right to bodily integrity. That was challenged under COVID. And sometimes, as the law moved on this issue, and now more judges especially are willing to re-examine their previous positions. Before COVID, our movement, our health freedom movement, couldn't win cases, couldn't win arguments in legislators. Like, it was really tough to make any movement on vaccines, with the exception of personal belief exemptions. We had those from basically the 1960s and earlier. But, there wasn't, like, we weren't winning. We were losing ground every year a little bit more. And then COVID came along, and it looked like we were going to lose more. And that kind of happened for a couple of years. But then the majority, the sleeping giant, woke up, and the shift happened. Yeah. And I think that's a great lesson, especially as we chart into the future, uncharted territory on all these other issues. Like, as I mentioned chemtrails earlier, what's being sprayed in the skies, talk about fluoride, just, like all issues that relate to health and what you're ingesting, because you don't have bodily autonomy. They spray in the sky, and then you have no choice. Yes. So I think we'll start to see movement on that, just like we saw with COVID. It'll be, so it looks bad. What looks bad now, it's just, it's really an opportunity to have faith in the Lord. A lot of times I'm walking outside in the sunshine, and there's just the trails over my head. And I try to just remember, this is an opportunity. This is not a problem. I mean, it stinks. I wish we didn't have them, but it's an opportunity for me to have such faith in the Lord that I know the Lord is stronger than those lines in the sky, and that, the Lord's design is stronger.
You can never fix a problem that you can't acknowledge.
Yes.
And so I look at this phase in the timeline, I guess, as the great reveal, where more and more is getting revealed to us that we need to heal, that we need to put focus on, that we need to reconsider our approach. And like all great reveals, it's stressful to go through. Yeah. Which is where that open-hearted compassion and curiosity comes in, to love our partners through this transition with us, so that we can stay connected as all of these things shift around us in this revealing. But through it, it gives us, as you said, an incredible opportunity to affect lasting change for our children and our grandchildren.
That is so well said. And the great reveal, that's really cool. I've heard the Great Awakening. The word reveal comes, I know that word in ancient Aramaic and Hebrew, and it's gelina, and it's the word that we get for the book of Revelation, revelation. I guess that might be a topic for another podcast, where you think we are in Revelation.
I would love to dive. Yeah, I would love to dive into that timeline topic. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. So knowing the data that you've seen and that I've seen, I'm sure you hear this a lot. One of the big pushbacks that I get from people in the populace is that if people don't vaccinate, that the medical establishment claims that all of these quote unquote eradicated diseases are going to come back. Like, what do you say to that? And what does Physicians for Informed Consent say about that? I mean, I know my opinion on that.
Yeah. We actually calculated the risk of that exact question. And the way that you do it is you look at the pre-vaccine data. So, for example, the measles vaccine came out in the year 1963. So what you do is you look at the years, like the 10 years before 1963, and you say, okay, well, how many people were getting injured from the measles? Like how many serious events were there? Deaths, serious disabilities. So we did that for every single disease on the schedule. And what we found is that in every single instance, the CDC cannot prove that the vaccine is safer than the disease. And there's a paper by a researcher, it's the Magno paper, which is cited in this book, that is instrumental in covering that issue. And well, you know, what you basically learn is that vaccines protect maybe about, I mean, I don't want to misquote the study, you know, because it depends on like whether they already had a pre-existing illness or not, but it's like between like 1,000 to 10,000 a year. It's kind of like the ballpark, which raises the question, Carrie, do you think that vaccines injure more than 10,000 people a year?
Absolutely, without hesitation, they injure more than 10,000 people a year.
It is certain that they do. And the reason we know is because of Brian Hooker and Bobby Kennedy's book, Vax Unvax. It proves the risk.
Yes.
There's no better evidence.
Book too.
Yeah, it's a wonderful book. Yeah. I have a copy in my library over there, but I like to hold up books
right over here.
As you can tell, I've done it like 10 times. But yeah, you know, but I hope that helps answer the question, you know, because what we try to do at Physicians for Informed Consent is put a number on it, on that exact question. And you also get helpful information about each disease. So maybe, you know, you have questions about like, what's your particular risk factor? What other options are there? Measles is a great one, you know, because when you read the book, you learn, oh, wow, I could take, as long as my vitamin A levels are good, I'm at far lower risk. And also you learn, oh, why is the mainstream claiming the risk is 1 in 1,000 when over here from the other mainstream, it says it's 1 in 10,000, which is more accurate. So we explain that from the physician's perspective. And I think people find that useful. You know, we mailed a copy of this book to every single legislator in Congress and to the president, and the vice president as well. So they all have a copy, or at least receive a copy.
Did you get any feedback from any of them?
Oh yeah. And the feedback tended to come from almost exclusively on the right, meaning the Republicans, and favorable. You know, thank you for this information. You know, they want to make change. Apparently, the left hasn't been told yet that they're allowed to change their minds. But when they get advised, then hopefully they'll start to change. I don't know. I haven't had much success with that, of persuading the left.
So I haven't so much with legislators, because they absolutely operate in that permissive structure. If they don't have the permission from the permission structure, they won't go there with you. But reaching out to more liberal or left-leaning people who don't understand the work that TFEC does and the way that we're here to fight for you, I really have had a lot of success reaching out to individuals with that viewpoint. And it's just all about helping them feel safe enough to share their views with you, and then not diving into judgment or getting offended that maybe like I disagree with that statement. And then also just helping them kind of grow in their understanding, because a lot of people with that viewpoint, they just don't understand. And there's this belief that they have that if they're fully vaccinated, they're like bulletproof and protected from all the things. And so when I share with them, you know, how does it feel to know that all of that schedule is for 15 infectious illnesses and 1 non-communicable bacterial infection? Like, that's it. It's 15 infectious illnesses and 1 bacterial infection. That's it. And like, how many infectious illnesses do you think exist? And what do you do to help yourself have a better outcome for all of those? Right. And then another thing that often comes up is this idea that there's an intense public health benefit for someone else if you get vaccinated. But there's only 2 vaccines on the schedule that are even designed to attempt to create sterilizing immunity, which means it prevents transmission or infection. Everything else only will have a personal protective benefit at best. And then there's that risk of asymptomatic carriage, like with pertussis component, right? But there's all these things that people don't understand because they aren't told as vaccine recipients, which I think is a travesty.
Right.
But when you can have that conversation with love, it expands their awareness.
Exactly. The standard, if you go to a standard pediatrician's office or standard doctor's office, they'll give you the vaccine information sheet prepared basically by the CDC. And that document is woefully inaccurate. It's like pharma propaganda. And so what we try to do with our book is change that whole paradigm. This is the new VIS in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. If you want to dive deep into the evolution of the VIS, there's a wonderful one-pager that we host on our website called The Evolution of the VIS. There's a fuller, longer document that we have linked to that is written by the CDC that tells the story of the decimation of your informed consent rights as a vaccine recipient, beginning in the 70s with Reyes versus Wyeth, going all the way to 2016 when they decided that a website address was good enough. And it's really enlightening to read in the government's own verbiage how they justified this process of telling you less and less and less about what you were actually agreeing to when you decided to be a vaccine recipient.
I'm really glad that you highlighted that. And I think folks should check that out on your website, especially because that's a great resource for sharing with a new mom or dad, and they're just going to get that VIS. So that's on their mind, so reaching them there, plus with the silver booklet, I wanted to also let your viewers know that our organizations, Physicians for Informed Consent, and also Texans for Vaccine Choice, we share a volunteer, which is Angie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. Lindsay Lemons is the best.
Yeah, she's so great. And so just if Angie's watching, just a special thank you. And I also wanted to highlight
We love you.
Yeah. I also wanted to highlight Children's Health Defense, which is another organization that I work with. I'm one of their lawyers. And we also
work with them.
Yeah, they're so awesome and great resources too. We have these meetings, with people in the movement, activists and so forth. And I just got to say, the future is so bright, so good. The children of the future, it's going to be filled with love and happiness and opportunity. And so wherever listeners are today in life, just remember that the Lord is good. The Lord is in control and the future is bright.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you'd like to leave our audience with before we end today?
Well, yes. If folks want to learn more about the booklet, they go to physiciansforinformedconsent.org. Or if they want to learn more about the control group case and the unvaccinated study, that's informedconsentdefense.org.
Perfect. You heard it from Greg Glaser himself. The time is now. The time to reach out to people is now, when they're beginning to be more receptive than they've ever been. It's been since 1999, I've been in this space, and it has never been as receptive as it is now. It's the time to find your courage, discover ways and strategies to reach out to people on difficult topics. If you need a little help, I can help you do that at TFVC. But it's so important to continue to keep that dialogue going to help steady our friends and our loved ones as we go through this really tumultuous season, to enter into a season of deeper stability and autonomy for all. Because I agree fully with Greg that that is where we are headed. We just have to stay focused, on task, on topic, bravely being the hands and feet of the world, and reaching out with open hearts and curious minds. I cannot wait to see you all again. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you, Greg Glaser, for being our guest today. You always have so much to share. I look forward to future conversations. I am Carrie Bigford, Outreach Director with Texans for Vaccine Choice, and this has been another very engaging episode of Shot Callers. I'll see you next time. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Shot Callers podcast. Please, if you found value in this content, rate us and share the podcast with a friend. It's a great way to get the message out and to empower everyone to make informed decisions. Until next time, never forget, we are the Shot Callers.